Guilin's karst towers rise from mirror-still rivers that vanish underground and reappear miles away, a rare hydrological labyrinth found in only a few places on Earth. Do you know that Huangshan's granite spires and pine clusters trap clouds so persistently they form a living sea of clouds that shaped classical Chinese painting and even altered local rainfall? In Zhangjiajie, quartz sandstone pillars break light into shimmering columns that sometimes float in mist, inspiring modern filmmakers and baffling geologists. And high on the Tibetan plateau, Mount Everest's glaciers lock away ancient air and dust, creating climatic time capsules that connect river deltas, mountain forests, and human history. Guilin's karst peaks form one of the planet's most compact and extraordinary limestone skylines, with hundreds of needle-like cones rising from mist-cloaked valleys. Do you know Guilin's karst landscape is one of the few in the world where tower karst plunges directly into rivers, creating cliffs, caves, and hidden springs sculpted by millions of years of water and wind? Rivers thread like silver ribbons through the limestone teeth, most famously the Li River, that has guided painters and poets for centuries. Paddling its slow current reveals reflections so precise that peaks seem to float between sky and water, a visual trick of light and geology. These karst towers are riddled with caves, some enormous, others intimate, where stalactites and stalagmites have grown into otherworldly formations. Reed Flute Cave, named for the reeds once used to make flutes, is a cathedral of stone, and its chambers whisper the region's subterranean history. On the riverside, Elephant Trunk Hill leans over the water like a colossal sentinel, its arch shaped by centuries of erosion and local legend. Walk to its base and you step into folklore that ties the landscape to ancient emperors and river spirits. During misty dawns, the whole region resembles a fossilized ocean of stone, each peak a frozen wave preserved by time. To touch a sun-warmed rock here is to feel the slow work of Earth, the patient erosion that wrote this dramatic topography. Understanding Guilin's karst is to read layers of climate, sea levels, and river histories etched into limestone, a natural archive older than most civilizations. In the rest of this film, we will trace those layers, meet the people who live within the towers, and reveal why this fragile wonder has inspired myths, paintings, and conservation battles. The Tian Shan Mountains contain one of the largest continuous glacial systems outside the polar regions, sustaining rivers that carve deserts and valleys. Do you know that Tian Shan means heavenly mountain, and that its high alpine meadows host over 1,000 plant species, many endemic to this range? Towering peaks exceed 7,000 meters in places, yet many of its most striking landscapes are the hidden cirques and turquoise lakes tucked between ridgelines. Those lakes, fed by meltwater, reflect a palette of blues so vivid, early Silk Road travelers described them as mirrors of the sky. The glaciers here act as natural water towers, releasing steady flows that feed the Ili, Yangtze, and other rivers vital to cities and farmland far below. In dry summers, those meltwaters can mean the difference between famine and harvest for communities on the mountain's leeward plains. Hidden alpine pine meadows become carpets of wildflowers in midsummer, attracting herders who move yurts and flocks along ancient transhumance routes. Those pastoral paths intersect with old caravan trails, linking the Tian Shan directly to oasis towns that once traded silk and mice. Rock faces engraved with petroglyphs and abandoned watchposts tell of millennia of human passage across dangerous passes. Archaeologists keep finding artifacts that reveal how the mountains shaped cultures, languages, and trade across Central Asia. Climate shifts have altered snowfall patterns, shrinking some glaciers while revealing fossil-rich moraines and ancient lake beds. Scientists now study these exposed layers, piecing together environmental history and early human adaptation to changing climates. Wildlife here ranges from elusive snow leopards to marmots, whose alarm calls punctuate the high valleys. Conservationists work with nomadic families to balance grazing needs with habitat protection along contiguous wildlife corridors. The Tian Shan is not just a backdrop, but a living engine shaping weather, water, and culture across vast regions. Understanding its rhythms reveals how intertwined mountain and desert, glacier and oasis really are in this part of China. In the next section, we'll trace one river from its glacier-fed source down to fertile floodplains and the ancient towns it sustains. That journey will show how a single melt season can ripple across landscapes and livelihoods hundreds of kilometers away. Beneath Heilongjiang's brutal winter sky, Harbin's ice becomes a crystalline cathedral unlike almost anywhere on Earth. Do you know the translucent blocks carved from the Songhua River are the very bones of the Harbin Ice Festival's towering sculptures? What begins as frozen river and city water transforms into entire cities of light, where gateways, bridges, and replicas of world monuments rise overnight. Artists from across China and the globe haul truck-sized ice blocks and with chisels and chainsaws coax fantasy from clear blue ice. By day, the festival shimmers like a translucent dream, and by night, thousands of LEDs flood the sculptures in saturated color, turning the cold into spectacle. Families glide down gleaming ice slides, while massive halls carved from blocks host lantern-lined passageways. Nearby, the Sun Island Snow Sculpture Art Expo displays monumental reliefs carved entirely from compacted snow, a softer, more painterly counterpoint to the ice castles. Each year, the festival pushes bigger, higher, and more intricate, with teams racing to outdo one another in skill and illusion. And as dawn softens the neon, the sculptures reveal tiny trapped air bubbles and fracture lines that tell the story of frozen water made into art. If you thought ice was simply cold, Harbin shows how it can be architecture, theater, and a cultural bridge to the fierce beauty of China's northern winter. West Lake in Hangzhou harbors one of the world's rarest combinations: freshwater lake reflections shaped by centuries of human-designed islands, causeways, and classical gardens that have preserved a living landscape since the Song dynasty. Do you know West Lake's Grand Causeway was engineered to control silting and flooding, transforming practical water management into poetic scenery? From willow-lined banks to the famed 10 scenes of West Lake, every vista is a layered story of nature and human design. Its reflections have shaped the gardens of Hangzhou and even inspired the terraces of nearby Longjing tea hills and the carved pavilions of Lingyun Temple. Boat Boatmen still glide in low wooden skiffs beneath arched bridges, making the lake a moving canvas where folklore like the legend of the white snake mixes with everyday life. The broken bridge looks ordinary until mist and light conspire to produce the optical mirage that made it an emblem of reunions and separations in Chinese literature. At dawn, lotus blooms lift from emerald water, while fishermen cast nets that trace concentric patterns, echoing ancient ink paintings. In autumn, maple leaves set the shore afire with red, and poets wrote verses that turned seasonal change into national memory. Walk the Suka's way, and you trace the footsteps of emperors and scholars who deliberately planted willows to create rhythm and perspective. Small islands, 3 pools, mirroring the moon among them, were once simple hydraulic features that became nocturnal lantern gardens where moonlight multiplies into folklore. The tea gardens of Longjing sit up the slopes, where the lake's microclimate nurtures delicate leaves, and a cup of dragon well tea tastes like distilled landscape. From the hilltops, West Lake unfurls into a living painting that leads the eye naturally toward Hangzhou's ancient temples and modern skyline. In every pavilion and on every causeway, there are inscriptions and stone rubbings that record centuries of human conversation with water. Follow those words, and you find pathways to other wonders of Zhejiang, where the lake's aesthetic logic shaped towns, crafts, and even the routes of ancient caravans. West Lake is both mirror and maker of culture, a place where geology, engineering, and storytelling braided together into something you can still step into. Stay with it long enough, and the ordinary will begin to feel like a revealed secret, each ripple an invitation to explore further into Hangzhou's living history. Even the lilies and carp seem to perform on cue, part of an ecosystem managed subtly over centuries to sustain beauty without sterilizing it. Visiting West Lake is therefore less about checking a box and more about entering a slow conversation with time, one paddle stroke and balm at a time. Komolangma, known to the world as Mount Everest, is still rising. The summit gains several millimeters each year as the Indian plate pushes into Eurasia. Do you know that Komolangma's thin upper atmosphere and persistent snows capture tiny fragments of cosmic dust and pollutants, turning its glaciers into an unexpected archive of Earth's recent history. Beneath that summit, the Chengdu icefall behaves like a frozen river, shifting by meters each season and rearranging the mountain's face. Climbers learn quickly that every step through its labyrinth of seracs is a negotiation with movement and time. On the northern Tibetan flank, the Rongbuk Glacier funnels ice into a stark, otherworldly valley where monasteries and prayer flags mark human presence at the world's roof. Remnants of past expeditions, cairns, abandoned oxygen bottles, and even century-old ropes are being exposed faster as glaciers thin, turning the mountain into a shifting museum. These artifacts tell a layered story of exploration, commercial ascent, and the environmental price paid by a warming planet. Researchers now study hardy microbes in the ice and plants clinging to lower slopes to learn how life endures under extreme UV and oxygen starvation. Their findings help us understand not just survival on Earth, but the limits of life in extreme environments elsewhere. Because Everest straddles an international border, every season becomes a choreography of permits, rescue coordination, and shared stewardship between Nepal and Tibet. That fragile cooperation shapes who gets to ascend, how garbage and crowds are managed, and how search and rescue is executed at 8,000 meters. But perhaps the most surprising truth is not at the very peak, but in the crevasses and caves where ancient microbes and mountain weather conspire to rewrite what we know about high-altitude climate. Stay with us as we follow a small team into those hidden fissures to uncover how Komolangma is quietly reshaping life far beyond its summit. Chengdu Research Base of Giant Panda breeding is one of the world's few centers that have successfully bred and reintroduced giant pandas into the wild. Do you know Chengdu Research Base monitors genetic lines and manages bamboo forests to mimic natural habitats for each individual panda? Visitors expect cute faces and sluggish cuddles, but scientists here track heart rates, behavior, and breeding cycles with surgical precision. Do you know staff at the Chengdu Research Base have developed hand-rearing techniques that significantly increase cub survival rates? Beyond breeding, the base runs long-term behavioral studies that help decide which pandas are ready for gradual release back into mountainous reserves. Do you know their reintroduction program pairs each candidate with wild-bred mentors to teach essential foraging and predator awareness skills? Conservation here is rooted in community, with local farmers planting bamboo corridors and schools learning panda ecology as part of the curriculum. Do you know the base's outreach programs reduced illegal bamboo harvesting and transformed former poachers into active stewards of panda habitat? Scientists here also discovered subtle shifts in panda vocalizations that could indicate stress, enabling caretakers to adapt environments before problems escalate. Do you know the research base shares its genetic database globally to prevent inbreeding and guide conservation strategies across China and beyond? Every enclosure is designed to simulate mountain slopes, dense bamboo groves, and seasonal changes so pandas retain instincts needed for wild survival. Do you know visitors can witness specialized veterinary care and watch researchers quietly collect data that will shape the species' next century? More than photo opportunities, the base is a laboratory of hope where science, culture, and conservation intersect to fight extinction. Do you know the knowledge from Chengdu has informed reserve design across Asia, proving local solutions can ripple into global impact? Perched on Lhasa's Red Hill, at about 3,700 meters, the Potala Palace rises in a sweep of white and deep red that few buildings on Earth can match. Inside, gold-plated chapels and jewel-studded stupas shelter the relics of past Dalai Lamas and the whispered prayers of centuries. "13 stories climb from fortress foundations, containing roughly 1,000 rooms, stacked like pages in a living history book." The Red Palace at its core is a luminous labyrinth of shrines, while the surrounding White Palace once housed the administrative heart of Lhasa. Local artisans carved curtains of stone and painted whole walls with cosmologies that blend Indian, Nepalese, and Tibetan styles. Centuries-old murals still glow with ochres and lapis lazuli, telling stories of pilgrimages, political skirmishes, and celestial visions. Pilgrims still circumambulate the palace stairs and the nearby Barkhor circuit, linking Potala's silence to the city's living chant. From its terraces you can trace a line of devotion toward Jokang Temple, where incense-smudged idols answer the palace's prayers. Every gilded reliquary and every carved beam registers a negotiation between spiritual necessity and political will. When winter sun strikes the whitewashed walls, they glow like a promise, drawing viewers into stories stitched across generations. Conservation teams now work to preserve fragile pigments and timbers, balancing tourism with the palace's living rituals. Walk from Potala's courtyards toward Norbulinka, and you follow the footsteps of Dalai Lamas from seat to summer garden. In every corridor, the architecture speaks of adaptation, how high-altitude builders shaped stone to hold prayer, governance, and memory. To stand before Potala is to read a skyline written in faith, history, and the thin air of the Tibetan plateau. Zhangjiajie National Forest Park is home to over 3,000 quartz sandstone pillars, some towering more than 200 meters in jagged, almost vertical formations found nowhere else on such a scale. Do you know that one pillar, once renamed the Southern Sky Column, directly inspired the floating Hallelujah Mountains in the movie Avatar? These pillars were carved by millions of years of erosion and subtle tectonic shifts, leaving isolated columns that catch light and cloud in ways that change the landscape hour by hour. Walk from the mist-wrapped Zhangjiajie viewing platform to the nearby East Sea of Stone, and you pass a sequence of gallery-like pillars that seem to rearrange themselves as you move. At Tianzi Mountain, the ridgelines are crowned with ancient forests and legends of local Zhangjiajie chieftains, making the geology feel braided with human history. From there, the glass walkway at Bailong Elevator drops or lifts you between vertical cliffs in a transparent cage, connecting valley floor trails with high mountain plateaus in minutes. Golden Whip Stream below offers a contrasting intimacy, a slow river winding between mossed pillars where endemic plants and rare birds find refuge. Hikers who follow its shaded path often stumble from dense bamboo groves into sudden clearings where a single solitary pillar punctures the sky. Local guides tell stories of caves that collect crystallized minerals and of rare salamanders that survive only in these cool, shaded microclimates. Scientific teams continue to discover plant species here that were unknown a decade ago, showing the park is both ancient and still revealing secrets. At At sunset, the sandstone columns shift from ochre to deep copper, and photographers plan their visits around a precise size window of light that turns the scene surreal. Night brings another transformation as the mists thicken and the silhouettes of the pillars become like ink strokes against a dim sky. The Yangtze cuts a living corridor through China, carving deep gorges and creating microclimates you can step through in a single day. Do you know the Three Gorges alone compress more ecological and human history than many countries, from subtropical cliffs to ancient settlements clinging to the riverbanks? A Yangtze River cruise begins as a slow unspooling of time, where mist lifts to reveal limestone cliffs, terraced farms, and temple rooftops staking like bookmarks. It moves you from the modern bustle of Chongqing downstream toward the world-altering engineering of the Three Gorges Dam at Yichang. Between those points, small tributaries fold into the main river, and narrow side streams like the Shenong Stream carry stories of fishermen and legends of river spirits. Hidden caves and limestone ruins line the banks, their names whispered in markets, but rarely appearing on tourist maps. The cruise offers rare glimpses of wildlife adapted to fast water, eel-like fish, kingfishers, and more quietly, the critically endangered Yangtze finless porpoise. Conservation stations along the route reveal efforts to rescue species pushed to the brink by dams and shipping. Onshore, towns such as Chengdu display a theatrical strain of folk religion, a riverside theater of afterlife myths, painted masks, and ceremonies responding to the river's moods. By the time the ship slips into broader waters, the river has revealed itself as a mosaic of ecosystems, cultures, and engineering feats few other rivers can match. A Yangtze cruise is not just sightseeing. It's an education in layers, geological, ecological, and human, stacked like strata along the shore. And when you step off in the delta, the river's immensity stays with you, a reminder of how water shapes nations and stories in celestial, relentless ways. On clear nights, the shore lights scatter reflections that look like calligraphy in motion, and local musicians on board will sometimes add the human rhythm to the river's perpetual flow. These intimate moments transform a transit into a narrative, and the Yangtze's long history feels less like facts and more like a companion guiding you downstream. Mount Kailash rises to 6,038 meters in far western Tibet and is one of the very few high peaks on Earth that remains unclimbed because centuries of sacred taboo protect its summit from human footsteps. Do you know Mount Kailash feeds four of Asia's great rivers, the Indus, Sutlej, Brahmaputra, and Karnali? So this single peak quietly supplies water to hundreds of millions across multiple countries? At its feet, Lake Manasarovar lies like a polished bowl of sky, one of the highest freshwater lakes on the planet, whose crystalline waters are said to erase sin and renew life for anyone brave enough to bathe in its icy edge. Pilgrims arrive in ragged caravans and modern jeeps alike, drawn by legends older than the borders that now surround the region, and they speak of miracles, visions, and inexplicable healings tied to the mountain's presence. The Kora, a clockwise circumambulation around Kailash, forces travelers over a high pass at nearly 5,600 meters, where thin air, blowing snow, and sharp scree test the limits of faith and flesh. Devotees perform full-body prostrations, inching forward in a ritual that can take weeks, while others complete the circuit in 3 grueling days, and every footprint becomes part of a living map of devotion. For Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and practitioners of Bond, Kailash is the cosmic axis, a world center where deities dwell and where the human and divine briefly intersect in a way rarely recorded elsewhere. Glaciers and hidden springs braid down its slopes to become the rivers that irrigate plains thousands of kilometers away. So the sacred landscape here is also an unseen engine of life across a vast region. At Darchen and the scattered monasteries nearby, incense smoke, prayer flags, and multilingual greetings stitch together centuries of travelers, traders, and hermits who have all left stories lodged in stony passes. In the coming section, we will trace those rivers downstream, meet the guides and pilgrims who risk frostbite and exhaustion for a single circumambulation, and unveil secrets that bind geology, mythology, and human endurance. Prepare to discover how one sacred mountain, forbidden to climbers yet mapped into the lifeblood of nations, holds mysteries that redefine what a landscape can mean to the world. But if China's talent for marrying natural drama with human ambition has a single emblem, it is the Great Wall of China, snaking over ridges, cliffs, and deserts for thousands of miles. Built as barrier, signal line, and statement, stretches like Jiangkou and Simitai cling to impossible crags as if the wall grew from the mountains themselves. Every watchtower reads like a punctuation mark in a long conversation between engineers and the environment. Local masons used rammed earth, brick, and quarried stone to contour the fortification so precisely that its path mimics the topography, as if tracing nature's own hand. From restored promenades at Badaling and Mutianyu to the ruined atmospheric passes near Jiayuguan, the wall negotiates mountain forest and arid steppe alike. Where the structure meets desert wind, sand erases footprints, while stone endures, bearing scars from dynasties, battles, and forgotten patrols. On clear mornings, the wall can appear as a hairline along distant ridgelines, its rhythm of crenellations and towers tricking the eye. Fewer visitors realize the wall's route was often chosen because of sacred peaks and hidden springs, so spiritual geography frequently shaped military strategy. If Zhangjiajie's vertical pillars show how geology sculpts the sky, the Great Wall demonstrates how human hands followed and honored those contours across centuries. Walking a quiet section at dawn, you feel the weight of history and the same raw, vertical drama that defines China's most extraordinary landscapes. Next, we will trace the wall, from verdant mountain passes to wind-swept desert towers, revealing builders' secrets, rebel tales, and inscriptions that time almost erased. You won't expect the ghost stories tucked into watchtowers, the clandestine messages soldiers carved into stone, or how sections have been reclaimed by wild forest and drifting sand alike. Huangshan is one of the only places on Earth where the endemic Huangshan pine defies gravity, rooting itself into near-vertical granite and growing at impossible angles. These sculpted pines, along with over 1,000 jagged peaks, form a skyline that disappears into an ever-changing sea of clouds that locals call Yunhai. The mountain's granite pillars were carved by millions of years of weathering, leaving shapes that invite myths and names like Lotus Peak and Flying Over Rock. Fog and sunlight collaborate here to turn the same ledge into a cathedral or a battlefield in the space of minutes. Early morning hikers sometimes find themselves walking on islands of stone suspended above a white ocean, with only the twisted pines as companions. This optical theater made Huangshan a prime subject for classical Chinese ink painters, whose landscapes echoed the mountains' exaggerated perspectives. From the cloud-draped summits, trails descend toward ancient villages such as Hongkun and Shidi, whose white-walled, black-tiled courtyards mirror the mountains' stark contrasts. Beyond the tourist paths, hidden springs and narrow gullies preserve quieter rhythms, connecting Huangshan's wild heart to rivers that feed the plains below. The mountain's stones eventually become the tiles and foundations of nearby towns, so the peaks are not separated from the lives that circle them. Huangshan demands slow attention. It repays patience with views that rewrite what you thought mountains should be. To stand on those weathered summits is to watch an ancient conversation between rock, cloud, and human imagination continue, uninterrupted. From the vertiginous towers of Zhangjiajie, whose sandstone pillars inspired blockbuster fantasies, to the serpentine sweep of the Great Wall that stitches together mountains and memory. Each landscape in China carries a secret. Limestone karsts in Guilin that seem to rise from the mists like sculpture. Ancient terraces that whisper agricultural engineering, older than many civilizations. Walk from the Forbidden City's courtyards into the neon arteries of Beijing, and you feel time folding, the imperial and the contemporary sharing the same breath. Follow the Li River downstream, and it hands you to a delta of rice paddies, then the Yangtze, which has carved not just canyons, but the livelihoods and legends of countless communities. Cross into Sichuan, and the bamboo forests give way to a very particular miracle: the panda, a living emblem of conservation that survives in pockets of mist and human care. You can trace millennia in a single meal, feel dynasties in a single temple beam, and watch modern skylines rise from ancient foundations. If today China can surprise you with skyscrapers of glass and neon, it can equally astonish with secret lakes that mirror stars and villages that still harvest centuries-old grains. What matters most is the sense that every place here folds into the next. So by following a river or a road, you do not leave wonder behind. You simply discover another. So stay curious, because the conclusion of this journey is not an ending, but an invitation. Go deeper, listen longer, and you will find that China's landscapes keep giving up their secrets. And when you return home, you'll carry not just images but questions that pull you back. Questions only answered by walking the path, tasting the food, and meeting the people who make these places alive.